Hello everyone and welcome to today's video in Mudith's chess channel. I am Mudith and today I'm going to show you a game between Tigran Petrosian and Robert James Fischer. This game was played in 1958 in the Porteros International. Here, Petrosian is playing the white pieces and Fischer is playing the black pieces. This was an interesting game, so I decided to show it. So, Petrosian opens the game with one c4. Fischer goes knight to f6, the standard English opening. Knight to c3, g6, g3, bishop g7, bishop g2, castles, knight to f3, d6, castles, knight to c6, and the game continues d3, trying for e4. Fischer plays knight to h5. It's an interesting move. It opens the diagonal of the bishop, and the bishop is now open. Now Petrosian responds with d4, solidifying his center control. Fischer strikes back in the center with e5. e5 attacks the center pawn on d4 and asks Petrosian, are you going to open the center or close it? Petrosian decides to close the center by playing d5, and he simultaneously asks Fischer's knight a question: are you going to come to the center or are you going to retreat? Or are you going to go to the edge of the board? Fischer responds with knight to e7. E4 is played by Petrosian to close the center and to solidify his control over it. Fischer responds with f5, an interesting choice to open the center. E takes f5, b takes f5. Now Petrosian spots the tactic by playing knight e5, and he is staring down at this knight on h5 that Fischer put there all the way back in move 7. So after knight takes e5, Fischer responds with the best possible move, recapturing the pawn with knight to g3. Now, one might ask, what happens if the knight is captured and then the queen captures this knight and white is simply a pawn up. Black doesn't have any counterplay. Same if white captures with the bishop as well, as this is still white's advantage. So after after the position knight takes g3 is played, and after knight takes g3, h takes g3, bishop takes e5, the material is equal. Petrosian responds with the best move, however. He plays f4. Then bishop g7 is what Fischer decides to play. He retreats back. Bishop bishop e3, bishop d7, bishop d4, knight g6, rook e1, rook f7. So here, if we go back a few moves, bishop d4 is played to take control of this diagonal. Knight g6, rook e1 is to take control of this open file. Rook f7 is to double up on the f file. Bishop f3, queen f8. Now black has successfully doubled up on the f file. King f2, rook e8. Black also strikes for control of the e file. Rook takes e8, queen takes e8. Now in the position, I'd say white is slightly better due to black's rook aiming down at his own pawn. But Petrosian plays bishop takes bishop, rook takes bishop, and now queen to d4. Now the queen in the center is an active piece, and it's aiming down at this pawn on a7 as well as looking down at the rook. b6 preventing Petrosian from taking the pawn on a7. Rook h1 aiming at the open file again, semi-open file. a5, knight d1. Petrosian is trying to remaneuver his knight from knight e3, queen f8, and knight e3 as expected. Rook f7 and b3. Petrosian's pawn structure looks solid, and so does Fischer's queen side. Now, Fischer offers a queen trade by playing queen g7. Queen takes g7, king takes g7. And now Petrosian plays a3, trying to play b4. Rook f8, bishop e2, knight e7, bishop d3, h6, rook h5, bishop e8. The bishop stares down at the rook, asking a question. The rook retreats back to h2, bishop back to d7, rook to h1. The players do not repeat moves. Now rook to h8 is played. Knight to c2. This endgame is looking very drawish right now. King to f6, knight to d4, king to g7, bishop to e2, knight to g8. Both the players until now have been playing very solidly, and now Petrosian plays the move b4, striking and asking Fischer, "Are you going to open up this file for me, or what are you going to do?" Fischer responds with knight to f6, opening up his own rook's rack. Later, he might be able to shift to the a file. Bishop to d3, and a takes b4, a takes b4. Now, king to g6 is played first, ensuring that this pawn has good support. Petrosian was threatening to take it. Rook to a1, taking control of the open file. Knight to g4 check. King to e2. Rook to e8 check. King to d2. And now knight to f6. Back. Rook to a6. Rook to b8. Rook to a7. Rook to c8. We're protecting the c7 pawn. c5. Striking. And now b takes c5. B takes c5 and d takes c5. Now black is a pawn up but has a double c pawn. Now white plays knight to f3, king to f7, and knight to e5 check. White is looking to trade off this knight for this bishop. King to e7, knight d7, knight d7. Now the game continues. Bishop takes f5. White reclaims the pawn, and black's pawn structure is looking very shaky. Rook to f8, g4, king to d6. Bishop takes d7, king takes d7, king to e3. Rook to e8 check, king to f3, and king to d6. Rook to a6 check, asking black if he's going to capture the pawn, and black happily does. Rook takes h6, capturing the free pawn. c4, pushing the passed pawn. This is an isolated double passed pawn. Rook h1, c3, still pushing. g5, c5, pushing the second pawn. Rook to d1, king to c4. g6, c2, attacking the rook. Rook to c1, king to d3. f5, protecting the g6 pawn. Rook to g8, making sure that these two pawns are under check. King to f4, king to d2. Now, you will be surprised. Anyone would think that in this position, white is winning. He's going to promote a queen. But the position is actually dead equal because white happily sacrifices his rook for the pawn. Rook takes c2. Amazing move. And this position is equal to, as if you play anything, let's say rook to f1, pawn promotes into a queen, takes and takes. So now these two pawns are very strong. So the game would continue something like this: king to g5, king to b1, f6, c4, f7, rook to, let's say, c8, and then g7, c3, g8 queen, rook takes g8, pawn takes, making a queen, c2, and now queen b8, king a1. We have to be careful not to go to c1. Queen to a7, king to b1, queen to b7, king to a2, queen to d5 check, king to b2, and this game is a draw as black is going to promote his own queen. So rook takes c2. This still draws the game. King takes c2, and these two pawns are just too strong for this one rook to defend. King to g5, c4, f6, c3, f7, and both the players agree to a draw, as this rook can't defend both of these pawns, and this would still end in a similar position to what we just saw. Let's say rook to c8, and then g7, king to b1, f8 queen, rook takes f8, g takes f8 queen, c2, queen to b4, king to a1. Be careful not to go to c1, as this would result in king f4, king d1, queen to b3, king to d2, queen to e3 check, king to d1, queen to d3 check, king to c1, and king to e3. And now the king and queen are very close, ensuring that this pawn is captured. It goes king to b2, queen d4, king a3, and king d2, and now this pawn falls. And if you were wondering what if king c1, then here you just have queen a1 and it's checkmate. So we have to be careful not to go to c1. Instead, we have to go to a1, maintaining the draw. And now queen e1, king b2, and now there's really no way for white to continue. Let's just say queen f2, pinning the pawn, king a1, queen f1, and it continues and it's a draw. So that was the game. I hope you enjoyed it and see you in the next one. Bye for now. Mudith signing off.